Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. This is part 2 of learning HTML. Today in this video we will start with HTML element. HTML element is defined by a start tag, some content and end tag. HTML element is everything from the start tag to the end tag. For example, this is the format of how to write HTML element. You have the tag name, the content and the close tag or end tag. Examples of HTML element, you have h1 and p. h1 for heading, p for paragraph. A break is to add a new line. Some HTML elements have no contents like the break element br. These elements are called empty element. Empty elements do not have an end tag. Also, there is another type of nested HTML element. HTML element can be nested. This means that element can contain other element. It means element inside another element. That's what does it mean nested HTML elements. All HTML document consists of nested HTML element. The following example contains 4 elements: HTML, body, h1 and p. As you can see from this HTML column, as I mentioned in the first video, that this is the minimum HTML document you can write. It should start with document type HTML, specifying that this is HTML5. Then you open HTML tag and close it here. Then inside HTML tab you have body tag, and inside the body tag you have HTML, you have h1 and paragraph. Example explained. The HTML element is the root element and it defines the whole HTML document. As I mentioned, it has a start tag, end tag, and inside HTML tag we have body, and inside body we have h1 and paragraph. The body element defines the document body. This is where you can show all the content you want to be displayed in the website. Never skip the end tag. Some HTML element will display correctly even if you forget the end tag. For example, here we have HTML and we close it. Then we have the body. Inside the body we have paragraph, but we forgot to close this paragraph, but still it's working fine. But it is better and it is a good practice to always close your tags. Also, we have another type called empty element. Empty HTML element, which is no content, are called empty elements. The BR tag defines a line break and it is an empty element without a closing tag. Like I said, BR is to break a line. Let's see an example. As you can see, this is, then we write a tag BR, then paragraph with a line break. As you can see, this sentence is added as a new line. If I write something like, for example, label, and I write test, then I close this label, then I click run. As you can see, by default the label, it has a break line and it's added as a new line. HTML is not case sensitive. It means are not case sensitive means that B capital is same as B small. The HTML standard does not require lowercase tag, but w3schools recommends lowercase in HTML and demands lowercase for stricter document types like HTML. Going to the next element or next section, which is HTML attribute. If you remember the first video, we talked about image and we said that in the image tag we have something called attribute, like the source, width and height. HTML attributes provide additional information about HTML element. HTML attribute, all HTML elements can have an attribute. Attributes provide additional information about elements. Attributes are always specified in the start tag. Attributes usually come in name value pairs, like name equal value. And this is very important, that attributes are always specified in the first tag, not in the closing tag or in the end tag. No, it will be in the first tag. The href or the anchor attribute defines a hyperlink. The href attribute specifies the URL of the page the link goes to. Let's see an example. For example, you have here a hyperlink. They wrote visit w3schools and they specify the href or the link to the source attribute, or in the source attribute in the image tag is used to embed an image in the HTML page. The source attribute specifies the path to the page to be displayed. As you can see here, we have the image tag with the height and the width. These are called attributes. There are two ways to specify the URL in the source attribute. The first one, absolute URL, links to an external image that is hosted on another website. For example, the w3school image slash the image. So you write here the path of the image. It will be hosted in some website. External images might be under copyright. If you do not get permission to use it, you may be in violation of copyright laws. In addition, you cannot control external images. It can be suddenly be removed or changed. So it is better to download the image and use your own image to be displayed on your website. Second thing, relative URL links to an image that is hosted within the website. Here the URL doesn't include the domain name. If the URL begins without a slash, it will be relative to the current page. Example, for example, if I write directly the image name, it means the image is hosted in the website. If the URL begins with the slash, it will be relative to the domain, as you can see here. W3school write tips here. It is almost always best to use relative URLs. They will not break if you change the domain. Now let's talk about the width and the height attribute of the image tag. The image tag should also contain width height attribute, which specify the width and the height of the image in pixels. The alt attribute requires attribute for the image tag specifying an alternative text for an image. If the image for some reason cannot be displayed, this can be due to the slow connection or an error in the source attribute, or if the user uses a screen reader. As you can see here, if there is something goes wrong with the image, so instead displaying the image, it will show the text in the alt. See what happens if we try to display an image that does not exist. See, as you can see, this image does not exist, but instead of showing an error, it will display the text you wrote in the alt. The style attribute. The style attribute is used to add style to an element such as color, font size, and more. Let's try it. See, this is called inline style. You can write whatever. You can control the text inside any tag by using the style. For example, you wrote here the color is red. I can change it to green, for example, and click on run. As you can see, it is green. Or I can return it to back to red, and also change the font size. I can write the font size. See, it is easy to style the text. Font size, for example, 130 pixel, and I write. See, as you can see, we can control the text inside any tag using style. Also, you have the language attribute. You should always include the language attribute inside the HTML tag to declare the language of the web page. This is meant to assist search engines and browsers to know the content or the language of the website, of your website. So it is good practice to specify the language in the HTML, as you can see. Country codes can also be added to the language code in the language attribute. So the first two characters defines the language of the HTML page, and the last two characters defines the country. The following examples specify English as the language and United States as the country. As you can see here, it specifies the English and the United States as a country. Also, you can see all the language code in our HTML language code reference. If you click on this one, you will see all the references here, the country and the ISO code. The title attribute. The title attribute defines some extra information about an element. The value of the title attribute will be displayed as a tooltip when you mouse over the element. As you can see, now if you move the mouse over the text, it will show a tooltip. As you can see, I am a tooltip. If you change this one, the tooltip, I am the tooltip. For example, if you wrote anything, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, click and run and over it again. As you can see, it will display whatever you wrote in the title. We suggest always quote attribute values. The HTML standard doesn't require a quote around attribute values. However, w3schools recommends quotes in the HTML and demands quote for stricter document types. Now, moving to this one, single or double quotes. Double quotes around attribute values are the most common in the HTML, but single quote can be also used. As you can see, we can use single quote or double quote, doesn't matter, both will do the same. So in summary, in this chapter, this is what we learned so far. All HTML element can have attribute, as we mentioned. For example, the image tag, you have source attribute, width, height, also the href attribute in the hyperlink, the alt attribute in the image. Also, you can add a style, inline style, to control the style of the text. For example, the color, the font size, the text alignment, the width, the border, whatever you want, whatever how you want to control the content, you can use the style to do that. And also we learned that the language attribute, you put it in the HTML tag to declare the language of the web page. And also the attribute title, or the title attribute, defines we use it as a tooltip. When hover the mouse over a text, it will show that text. Here you can test yourself with these exercises. I recommend to go for every exercise, don't skip it, try to answer these exercises. It is very helpful. Now let's move to the next section, which is headings. As I mentioned before, we have H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6. These are predefined headings, starting from the H1, which is the largest or the biggest heading, and ending with heading 6, which is the smallest one or the lowest one, H6. Headings are important. Search engines use the headings to index the structure and content of your website. This is very important. This is very important to your website, because the search engine use these headers um, to extract the information or put your website in the first or results of the search engine. Users often skim a page by its headings. It's important to use headings to show the document structure. H1 headings should be used for main headings, followed by H2 and then H3. Use HTML headings for heading only. Do not use headings to make text big or bold. Actually, I used to do something like this. I used to use H1 and these headings to make it bold. Then I figured out that there is another way I can make the text bold. You can use directly the tag bold, or even you can control it through the style using the weight. But this is later. We will reach at that point, and I will teach you everything. Bigger heading. Each element heading has a default size. However, you can specify the size for any heading with the style attribute using the CSS font size attribute. This is already did it. I told you that in the style you can use the style to change the style of or change the font size of the headings. HTML paragraph. A paragraph always starts on a new line, and it is usually a block of text. HTML paragraph defines a paragraph. A paragraph always starts on a new line, and browsers automatically add some white space or we called a margin before and after paragraph. You cannot be sure how HTML will be displayed. Large or small screens and resized windows will create different results. With HTML, you cannot change the display by adding extra spaces or extra lines in your HTML code. The browsers will automatically remove any extra spaces and lines when the page is displayed. As you can see here, we put some spaces, but as you can see here, it shows just perfect without any white spaces. It's like it's trimmed the spaces. HTML horizontal rules. The HR tag defines a thematic break in the HTML page and is most often displayed as a horizontal rule. The HR element is used to separate content in the HTML page. Let's try it. As you can see, this line you just can write HR and will put this line. Let's see. HR and we run it. It should put another line. It is very easy to control these tags. Once you remember everything, once you know what each tag does, you will create your website and the content perfect. And also we talk about PR, which is break and add a new line. This is, we already spoke about it. And let's see this poem. What do you think about this one? As you can see, we put it as a new line, but when we put it in the paragraph, it will trim all the spaces and put it in one line. Solution: in order to preserve the style of this, in order to add a new line in the paragraph tag, we can use a pre. A pre is also called pre-formatted text, so whatever in this tag, it will be shown as it is. The text inside the pre element is displayed as a fixed width font usually, and it preserves both spaces and line breaks. So that's it for the part 2 of learning HTML. I hope you like this video. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel and like this video, and wait for the part 3. Thank you everyone.